Pokemon Go has announced the August Community Day Pokemon to be Froakie Community Day, which means the time has come. Greninja is going to get Hydro Cannon. So yeah, August 13th from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. local time, it's going to be Froakie Community Day, which means Froakie's going to be spawning all over the place, and you can get the shiny Froakie. And when you evolve all the way up to Greninja, you're going to get the special Community Day attack, Hydro Cannon. But there's an extra little perk. You might know that Greninja right now has pretty bad fast moves. It has Bubble, it has Feint Attack, but Greninja is also going to get Water Shuriken, which is the most powerful water type fast move for both raids and PvP, so kind of a big deal for Greninja here. And then to sweeten the pot even more, this community day is going to be a 3x Stardust community day on top of it. So yeah, I know I'm off work for this community day. Bless my life. Hope you're off too, because it's going to be a pretty big one. At any rate, in this video, I'm going to be talking about just how good Greninja is going to be with these changes in both raids and in PvP. So when it comes to Water Shuriken in raids, it has 9.9 damage per second with 13.64 energy per second, making it the highest energy gaining fast move for raids as a water type attack. And then also competes with the damage really well. It's not that far off from the other attacks in terms of damage. So this is a pretty big game changer for the Greninja. Then when it comes to its PvP stats, GamePress has a little bit of an error here. The formula for this sheet, you have to use -1 for the turn, because when it translates to the damage per turn and the energy per turn, it adds +1, because that's like how it works in Pokemon Go. Just a weird little error. But basically, Water Shuriken is a 3-turn fast move that has 2 damage per turn and 4.66 energy per turn. So it gains more energy than the Mud Shot and deals a little bit more damage than the Mud Shot. Hydro Cannon, we're talking about. We're talking about a Pokemon that can now whip out Hydro Cannon faster than the Swampert. When it comes to Greninja's performance in raids, you can see here, sorting by DPS using the DPS TDO spreadsheet here on GamePress, that it has as much damage per second with Water Shuriken and Hydro Cannon as the Kyogre, a legendary Pokemon. And you can see, yeah, the Shadow Swampert beats it out, but there isn't a Shadow Greninja yet in the game. And Greninja's already beating out the normal Swampert, so it's just a matter of time before Greninja becomes a optimal top tier water type raid attacker. As it stands right now, it's just a really good water type raid attacker. So yeah, Greninja definitely has it going on in the raid scene, and it's a cool looking Pokemon. I mean, it's a black shiny Pokemon, so everybody loves that. They got their black Charizards, now we got the black Greninja, cool ninja guy. Greninja's going to see some play in raids. That much is guaranteed. Moving on to the PvP side of the force, starting out with the Great League here, you can see that Greninja has a lower stat product than the Swampert. And I believe even against the Shadow Swampert, it has a lower bulk product, or at least overall like lower bulk feel, because it's got that lower HP stat. So that is a bit of a detriment to the Greninja. Greninja can make up for it with its dark typing, giving it extra resistance against ghost and opposing dark type Pokemon and psychic type attacks as well. So that can be a benefit to the Greninja, but overall, definitely a glass cannon Pokemon. Now Greninja can make up for that a bit with its superior fast move, allowing it to reach the Hydro Cannons faster than Swampert, but because it's a 3-turn fast move, it doesn't reach the Hydro Cannon sooner 100% of the time. Because of just how timing works out in this game, you can get locked into that Water Shuriken animation where Swampert would be able to launch its Hydro Cannon a turn sooner. So when you really boil it down to the nitty gritty, the speed bonus of the Water Shuriken isn't exactly that great. Another thing it does have going for the speed bonus is that Night Slash, but I feel like the Night Slash is also a little bit of a detriment for the Greninja in the Great League, because when you compare Greninja to the Swampert, Swampert's got Earthquake, Swampert's got the Sludge Wave, it's got these big daddy nuke attacks to just blast stuff with damage before it goes down. If you can't reach 2 Hydro Cannons, you can reach one of those moves, it's going to be the move to use. Greninja doesn't have that kind of luxury going on for damage, and also has like relatively poor coverage on top of it because of it. So it's like a little bit awkward. Of course, you do have the opportunity to get the Night Slash boost and then have boosted Hydro Cannons, which is quite possibly one of the most terrifying sounding things in the game. But I think overall that Night Slash being there instead of a Big Daddy Nuke attack is going to hurt Greninja's closing power. If you're unfamiliar with its other charge moves, we got Aerial Ass and Hydro Pump. We got Surf. So you're probably not going to use those charge moves. It's going to be Night Slash, Hydro Cannon, and yeah, the closing power is going to suffer a little bit for it. So overall, I feel like in the current state of the meta, Greninja is just kind of a weaker side grade to the Swampert. There will be matchups and scenarios that Greninja will handle better, but I feel like overall, 9 times out of 10, the Shadow Swampert is going to be the superior pick. Things could change in the future for Greninja, though, based on a slight shift in the meta. Like, if we were back in the Wall Rain era, Greninja would be, ice resisting and would have a earlier neutral hit to chip down the Wall Rain with, which could be a benefit over the Swampert. If we were in the Trevenant era, we'd have that early Night Slash to hit the Trevenant with, which would be to Greninja's benefit. But right now, those Pokemon are kind of on the down. Other Pokemon are a little bit better. And yeah, so the meta is favoring the Swampert, but the meta could change in the future, and Greninja could be the better Swampert in that future kind of meta. So while it's not the most exciting Pokemon in the moment, one small shift could make Greninja some pretty big news. Then to add to that, if it were to get a moveset update and it got acrobatics, let's say, a big nuke attack, a flying type one on top of it, that could be some pretty big news for the Greninja. That would give it a way to hit back against fighting type Pokemon and grass type Pokemon that for the most part shut Greninja down. Medicham takes over 80% HP with the acrobatics, and a lot of the grass type Pokemon and all the other fighting type Pokemon, they don't want to face no acrobatics, so that could give it that Big Daddy Nuke power that Swampert has with the Earthquake and the Sludge Wave, but it's going to do it in a unique kind of way, different type of coverage, which would give it more opportunities to stand out over the Swampert. So barring those changes or shifts in the meta, once again, Greninja does feel like a weaker Swampert for the most part in the Great League, but one slight change and Greninja could be popping off in a huge way. Then when it comes to the Ultra League, Greninja still has the same Swampert comparison going on. It is the less bulky Swampert. It can't be Shadow like the Swampert can be, and it doesn't have the Big Daddy Nuke attacks that Swampert has to really close out fights. One benefit that Greninja does have up here compared to the Great League is that you are going to run into more Jellicent, and you're going to see Giratinas as well. Ghost type targets that you resist a lot of their attacks from, if not all of their attacks. So you got more opportunities to use Night Slash effectively, not just as a bait move, but as like an actual attack that you effectively want to hit things with, which means you kind of have more opportunities to get the boost as well. So I'd say compared to the Great League, Greninja is a little bit on more equal footing with the Swampert up here. So you might see a lot more Greninja play in the Ultra League than what you will see in the Great League at this time. That said, Greninja does have a lot of problems up in this meta. Tapu Fini roaming around. Do these attacks touch Tapu Fini? I don't think so. And then you got the Swords of Justice Pokemon, which are also quite popular, and Poliwrath is also a pretty big deal up here as well. So Greninja does have its issues here in the Ultra League, but I do think it will see a decent amount of play up here. And then when it comes to the Master League, man, Greninja's bulk issues just cannot get fixed, right? You can see compared to the Swampert, it's way less bulky than what the Swampert is. Swampert barely gets that much play in the Open Master League meta to begin with, so I don't see Greninja really competing with it in that regard, even with the Water Shuriken in its arsenal. Even if it got the acrobatics, we probably wouldn't be seeing a lot of Greninja in the Master League. Now, I know some people are curious about the Ash Greninja possibly making its way into Pokemon Go in the future. I feel like if we do get Ash Greninja, it's going to be treated as a Mega Evolution, but I can't say for certain. I don't know what Pokemon Go is going to do with that. But anyways, if you were to translate the stats over, the bulk issue really isn't fixed. It just gets a higher attack stat, and much like the Mega Diancie, I feel like that bulk is really going to hold it back. Sure, you're going to be hitting a bit harder and that can close out some fights, but I think, especially if it's like a mega treated Pokemon, there's other Pokemon that you're going to bring instead of it. Even if it's not a mega treated Pokemon, I feel like it's going to have a rough time standing out in the Open Master League meta. So that about wraps up my current thoughts here on the Greninja, the Hydro Cannon, Water Shuriken Greninja, the Triple Stardust Community Day Greninja. This is definitely going to be a hot one. If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below. Let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content and you want to see more like it, maybe you want a Greninja PvP IV deep dive, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. Just wanted to do a little mini apology here to everyone that was hoping for the Poliwrath PvP IV deep dive. I picked up a bunch of shifts at work, and I thought I had my time organized in a way where I'd be able to still get the Poliwrath deep dive done, and it became very clear to me just as we were approaching the weekend that it was not going to happen. So I pulled the plug on it pretty quick, and yeah, so left some people hanging for a Poliwrath deep dive. Good news is that it's only 4 months until December, so you know, we got more time to marinate on the Poliwrath deep dive, see which matchups really matter for it, what we should needle down on. So a little bit of a benefit, a little bit of copium here from me, but yeah, sorry for not doing the Poliwrath deep dive. Greninja deep dive, working on it now. So hopefully I'll get it done well before the Community Day weekend, right?